here we're going to talk about three very different kinds of approaches, and then on the next slide, we'll look at their trade-offs. So, not uncommon to do things like having keywords that you search for. So, these are all regular expressions. They're sort of ways of conveying patterns that can occur in text to the computer. But, you can look at this. So, for example, somebody might override a policy by saying ignore it or bypass or override it or use the words policy or guardrails, right? Like, no request should ever be mentioning guardrails, for example, when you're talking to an LLM. Or I'm going to try and escalate privileges, right? Like I'm admin, I'm CEO, I'm root. Or referring to information that should be protected, like a date of birth or a social security number. Or these encoded payrolls are things like these special characters. I'm going to put special characters in there that I think are going to sort of push the LLM to do the wrong thing. So, very common approach is to essentially have guardrails that say, here's patterns of things you should look for. If you see that pattern, just reject it. Go back to the user. You could filter it. So, for example, you could say, hey, anything that looks like it's a funky binary encoded payload, I'm just going to strip it out. I'm going to let the rest of it go through. Or if it looks like they're trying to override the policy, you can just reject the request outright. Another approach is to take a bit more of a traditional machine learning take on it. And that would be what you could do is you could say, here's a big database, right, of sort of people who are injecting bad things into prompts, and then train up an old school text classifier that goes, okay query or bad query. Just I'm making a binary decision. Does it seem like this is a malicious query or something I shouldn't answer, or does it seem like it's okay? And if it turns out that it passes, then you just hand it off to the LLM. And if it doesn't, you issue an error message, right? So, and then the final one, which is a super common approach, is to use another LLM to do the evaluation. So, you've got a query, you've got some context, and you might go, hey, other LLM, where other LLM might just be the same LLM you're using to answer the query, or it might not. We'll talk about that in a second. Could you judge this and tell me whether it looks like they're trying to escalate privileges? Or does this look like a query that has a hidden payload in it somewhere? Because it's got sort of four words that make no semantic sense whatsoever up front. And the LLM can say, yep, here's a score, 90% sure that it's malicious. Here's why. And then you just hand it off to a decision metric at that point, right? Like anything above 30% likely to be malicious, I'm going to just reject it outright. Or, if it looks like it's got an adversarial prefix on it, these sort of words that don't make any sense, but kind of push the LLM in a bad direction, you could just rephrase it and strip those things out, right? So you can do hand-coded patterns, you can do traditional machine learning, or you could incorporate large language models into the process.